Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week we have power! Power! Forgive me a cruel chuckle. Power. Hey.
Hello.
We're back.
Here we are. We're talking about stuff.
As we do most weeks. I won't say every week.
Not every week.
Most weeks. And we're back this week with like a full movie.
A movie. We're talking about a movie.
It's been a while.
It's been like a month.
Yeah, since we did Avatar Way of Water, I think, which feels like forever ago.
Well, it was like a month ago.
Yeah. So here we are in the glorious month of September.
Heck yeah.
Things are getting a little chilly.
Things are chilling out.
Still a little warmer during the day, but you know, it's a little chilly
at night. Things are chilling out here at the Recently Logged studio.
We can feel the oncoming fall, and we look forward to it greatly.
Indeed we do.
But this week, we're talking about a non-fall movie.
I mean, it's really, I guess it's really more of like a summer or spring movie.
It's very, like all the plants are doing very well.
Yeah, they're thriving in this.
So. But yeah, we're talking about Robin Hood.
Talking about Robin Hood.
Our Disney Robin Hood.
Our first like Disney movie in a while,
yeah,
I think.
Probably.
We did like Snow White earlier this season, but I think that's like the most recent one we've done.
Yeah, our most recent...
Our most recently logged, you could say.
This guy's got jokes.
But yes, my name is Robbie.
And I'm Micah.
And we're talking about Robin Hood.
Let's get into what you need to know about the movie. Alright, so again, we're talking about Robin Hood, which is a 1973 movie. It is rated G. It's an hour and 23 minutes. Its little IMDb description is... The story of the legendary British outlaw portrayed with the characters as anthropomorphic animals, which is a very boring description of the movie.
That's a very, like, literal,
it's like
clinical, almost description of what the movie is.
Right? It's not any plot. It's just like, it's Robin Hood, but with animals.
It's Robin Hood, there's anthropomorphic animals. You know what it's about.
The cast features Brian Bedford, Phil Harris, Roger Miller, Peter Ustinov, Terry Thomas, Monica Evans, Annie Devine, Carol Shelley, and others. It is directed by Wolfgang Reitherman as well as David Hand.
Very nice.
I don't know if it loads. It's not loading well. Okay, yeah, he was just a co-director. I wanted to make sure it wasn't like an animation director or something. Story by Larry Clemens. Based on characters and story concepts by Ken Anderson. Also story sequences by like 5 other people.
There are a lot of story sequences.
Van Scarey, Frank Thomas, Eric Cleworth, Julius Finsden, and David Michner.
I mean, this is pretty much just if you know the 70s Disney animation crew, it's just those guys.
Literally.
Yeah.
It was nominated for 1 Oscar.
Hey.
For all you Robin Hood haters out there. This baby was nominated for an Oscar.
Oscar nominee.
Of course, it was nominated for Love for Best Original Song.
It is the best original song. That's my hot take.
It did not win.
It's the best original song.
It did not win. Here, say something about it. I'm going to check who won that year.
Okay, this is like one of my soapboxes for this movie, but I honestly think that Love, performed by Nancy Adams, is like the best song ever produced for a movie, which is a bold claim, but one I will stand by. Do you have the winner, Micah?
We May Never Love Like This Again. The Towering Inferno.
Oh, The Towering Inferno. I forgot that was a 70s movie.
I've never heard of that song, but I've heard of Love, and it should have won. Is the definitive thing there? I think
it really should have, man. It's such a beautiful song. My goodness.
Cinematographer Gene Midder.
Oh.
Cinematographer. Oh boy.
There's another one. Oh, Francois Leonard.
Yeah, 2 cinematographers.
It's a very French name.
A very French name. Composer George Bruns.
Very nice.
And that is, by my account, all you need to know.
Man, it's such a magical score.
Actually, that's really not all you need to know, because technically there's a lot of context.
There's a lot
that
of
can
production
go with this,
history,
movie as well, which I think is important. It was made again in 73, very early on in the 70s. Disney was in real rough sorts. They were doing so bad financially after opening Disney World and then the entire economy crashing that they chopped down their production team to being extremely small and only did one feature every 2 years.
Yeah.
And even though the budget for this movie is technically relatively similar to the movies that came before it, because of one of the worst series of like inflation ever, it did not cover nearly as much.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of this movie, and I mean, if you've seen the movie at all, you can tell it's cheap. There's so much reused animation cells.
A lot of recycled animation in this movie.
Like from the Aristocats and Jungle Book especially. Like if you've seen either of those movies
We
and
grew
know
up
them
on
really
those
well,
movies.
which we did, and then watch Robin Hood, you could just be like, oh look, it's that. And
It's
that,
literally,
and that,
you
and
can
that.
literally just point out all of the scenes where
But
they
I mean,
reuse stuff.
They're grabbing stuff from as far back as they're like reusing Snow White animation
Yeah,
cells.
I
in
forgot.
this.
There's like Sleeping Beauty dance cycles. There's Snow White cycles. It's crazy.
At any rate, this movie was kind of
cobbled together.
cobbled together animation wise, and kind of reflects that. So
Yeah.
I think that's a very important piece of context for looking at both the themes of the movie and the actual text and like physical movie of the movie, if that makes sense.
The feel of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's basically what you need to know. You can research the production history of Robin Hood. There's probably quite a few like little short documentaries about it.
Or go watch Breadsword's video on
Yes,
Robin Hood.
the YouTuber known as Breadsword
It's like
made
my
a
favorite
great
YouTuber.
He made a great video about Robin Hood and actually prompted us to rewatch it a little while ago,
which was a great thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into what we thought about Robin Hood. So, Rami,
Yes, Micah.
co-host, brother, friend.
Brother.
What do you think of Robin Hood if you were to sum it up in not so many words?
Robin Hood, it's a childhood classic. In my case, I grew up this wasn't like my most watched movie when I was younger.
This was definitely one of our go-tos, though.
But like it was a staple for sure. Of the Disney animated movies, it was always one of my more like favored, you know. But that's just because it's such a good time. Like, the music is so beautiful and fun, and all of the characters are like so instantly lovable, and like all of the faces they make and like all of the comedy is just really up my alley, and it's probably formed well, again, like a lot of like something like Monsters Inc. Like a lot of the movies I watched when I was younger, my comedic tastes were definitely formed by. But yeah, it's just really fun. I think the music is beautiful. I think the animation is, despite its cheapness, really expressive when it needs to be, and like really endearing. I think it has some really good set pieces. Like a lot of its action sequences are actually really fun and memorable, which I wouldn't expect from something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good time. I think its sort of vignette structuring it actually works to its advantage a little bit. Even though it does lead to like an occasional kind of weirdly paced out scene, or again, like the ending of the movie being kind of abrupt and out of nowhere almost.
And then he came back.
Yeah, exactly. But like overall, I think it's a really great time, and it's just a really sweet and beautiful movie. Like, I don't know what else you could ask for, really.
Yeah. Would you rate it, Remy?
I gave it a way too generous, probably 5 out of 5. But that's
a pretty hot take.
I don't know. I think it's a 5 in my
your heart.
Yeah, in my heart. Like, I feel like I would just be selling it short just for other people's sakes if I gave it a 4. So I just gave it a 5. But yeah, what do you think of Robin Hood, Micah?
What do I think of Robin
Arguably,
Hood?
you're the more adventure-obsessed out of the two of us.
I was about to say, like, you're talking about this being a staple of your child. This was, like, I didn't just watch Robin Hood a lot. I wanted to be Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Not only that, but Fox character designs are always the coolest. If I was ever to be an anthropomorphic animal, don't think too deeply into this. I'd want to be a fox.
Wow.
Very cool. And yeah, I loved this movie growing up. So it's probably blind nostalgia leading me into this now.
That's what I said in my review. I was like, it's literally just the rosy childhood view of the movie. In reality, it's probably not as good as I think it is.
But beyond it being quote unquote good, I just love this movie. I love sitting in this movie. I have such a love for the Disney 70s movies in general. I think so much of the restraint led to some of the most interesting Disney movies ever made.
Absolutely.
Just even if they're not the best, which a lot of the 70s ones are not the best.
No.
They have such character and flavor because their low budget led them to kind of cut down to kind of what worked or what didn't
exactly,
about what they were going for.
They had to innovate because they couldn't do anything else.
And I think that's totally the case here. I think they made all the right decisions on where they put their budgets. Yeah. Somehow the animation manages to be extremely expressive and memorable in the faces. Yeah. Which, again, animals are a lot cheaper to animate than humans, but still.
Absolutely.
And the songs are incredible. Not even just love, but I literally love all of the songs in this.
Dude, anytime the characters start singing, I'm like, yeah, man, heck yeah.
It's great. I think, especially this time around, that the pacing kind of worked really well for me. I would kind of hate for this to be longer. If it was longer, I think it would definitely start dragging due to the way it's structured out.
You could argue it's a segment too long even now, the way it is.
And it's just every segment is fun. It very much is very I'm sure by all of the story sequencers, they would all just be given kind of a sequence to write, essentially.
You write and you produce that section of the movie.
Which you could do one at a time for animation and everything, keep it nice and cheap on the budget end of things. So I'm sure that's kind of how it was produced and why it kind of ended up in this kind of segmented weird thing
where
fades
sometimes to black characters, and something else happens.
Yeah, sometimes characters won't be in all of the segments, even though that seems like they should be.
Yeah.
So you have all of these things, but I think it blended together into such a unique experience that kind of hits all of Robin Hood. A lot of diehard Robin Hood fans really, that I know of anyway, really love this movie.
Yeah.
And
well, it was my introduction to Robin Hood at the very least, and it familiarizes you with so many of the tropes of Robin Hood and does them all pretty well.
Yeah, it covers it covers the spirit of Robin Hood in a really effective, efficient, and fun way with really memorable, again, set pieces and just jokes. I think that's... I want to end here because I'm going on too long.
I was about to say, this is a very long...
I'm pulling a U here and doing my brief thoughts on the movie.
Can't point a finger at me. I was nice and brief, Buster.
But the comedy in this, we were laughing the other day almost the entire runtime.
Yeah,
just
man.
at some visual gag, some joke, some voice performance. The vocal performances in this thing are incredible.
There's there's an all-time great line read in pretty much every segment, if not multiple.
And we were just dying laughing. And if it's not, I understand honestly, just easily, just if you didn't connect with the comedy, not liking the movie at all, because that's what this movie is at the end of the day, and I love it for that.
Yeah,
I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Again, probably a generous rating.
Generous, yeah.
But I can't even see giving this lower than a 4. I really can't.
Yeah. It's a good time, man. I don't know. For all of its kind of strange oddity, sort of idiosyncrasies, I think it really works on a cinematic level.
There's
I don't know. It's not as traditionally made as some of the other movies. Even something like 101 Dalmatians, same director, similar era.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I don't know, it feels a lot more innovative than that.
Yeah, so even 101 Dalmatians had such a bigger crew and production to work on. We were actually laughing about that when we were watching this movie. They do the opening credits, and it goes on for about a normal length of opening credits, but if you look at the title cards, there's 2 names per card.
Yeah.
The crew of this movie is tiny. They were stripped so far back, and I think that gives the movie such a down-to-earth feeling.
Well, it feels very much like an effort from a group of people, just a group of friends or something who sat down and they were what if they just make really funny, well thought out worlds and characters.
Yeah, and
scenes.
so much of that brings to life so much of the comedy. I mean, even thinking of like the vocal performances, and this is gonna sound like weird and maybe like a bit of a stretch, but it sounds like you're listening to like riffs from like a backstage of a theater production.
Right.
Like a bunch of, and a lot of these actors are either theater or Western actors, which is very funny.
Yeah.
But like it feels like that kind of close knit, like, and obviously that's a lot from the writing, but also like a lot of these voice actors literally were friends. I think Maid Marian and the lady who voices the chicken.
Yeah,
I don't remember her name.
The lady in waiting.
The two of them like had starred in a bunch of stuff together, both on and off stage.
Yeah.
And like so much of that kind of authenticity between what they're doing works so well in the vocal performances and the comedy. Peter Ustinov is like the greatest vocal actor of all time, probably.
He's taking so many like wild swings at the way he reads some of these lines, and it just works.
And all of them do, and they have this down to earth sensibility to all of them that it works. Again, like you have moments where like Robin Hood is impersonating Nutsy the vulture, and like it's a terrible impersonation, but it's so funny because it sounds like a friend imitating a friend. Like it is just this, it taps into this feeling of a real production that you don't get with very many Disney movies.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It does feel like almost theatrical a lot of the time, which is great. It really works to its advantage.
Yeah.
Again, with all of the sort of like sectioned off scenes and like kind of
the fade to black and turn down the house lights,
the very like strange proper English speaking characters and like southern characters for some reason.
It's actually, and I'll steal from Breadsword again because that's all I can do. That's what my brain is these days.
I mean, if a critic makes a good analysis of a movie, you can repeat it.
But yeah, I very much agree with what he says in his video in terms of good voice acting is like good performances in voice acting is ones that you don't question. Not that don't stand out. Obviously, there are a ton of standout voices, but that you never are like, yeah, that's somebody recording a line. You just, it flows all naturally in the world, and somehow they made their vocal performances just from the writing and the amazing talent on a vocal end that we have here work between these extremely British, like very stage West End actors and these classical Western actors. And they're all mushed together. Every other character has a drastically different kind of accent. And you never question it once.
Right?
It does not stand out.
It's so strange. Like, if you step back from it for even a second, you're like, wait a minute. What's going on?
And I think that's one of the most impressive things that the movie does and really speaks to the quality both of the writing and what the vocal performers are doing here. They're incredible.
Well, and also the animators too, because like a lot of the kid like performers, like the child actors in this, are giving like these really like kind of half mumbled lines. But like the animation, it makes it work. I don't know.
Yeah, there's like I said, I don't know how they did it. They had so little money. And it comes through in every big sequence they have. But so much of the expressions are just down in this.
Dude.
Like, Sir Hiss makes the funniest faces in the world.
Dude, literally, when I first rewatched this, like, because I hadn't seen it for, like, probably 8 years the last time I watched it. And I was like, I feel like Hiss is probably going to be kind of annoying this time. But, like, he's, like, almost the funniest character in the movie.
Yeah, like, in most cases a character like him would not work.
No.
But his writing is consistently funny. He's not overused. He's not really plot important. I think that's really the thing that kind of sells him, and that sounds really weird, but a character like him, if he was actually like a conniving subplot, would be really kind of annoying. That's not like what people want Sir Hiss to be.
Exactly.
He is this really like they're a duo, you know. Prince John and Sir Hiss work only together. And he's just a great comedic foil. And almost all of the characters, again, it benefits the kind of vignette style writing they were going for. Just have like a couple partners that they work with. Obviously, like Robin Hood's always with Little John. Prince John is always with Sir Hiss. Maid Marian is almost always with what's her face. Like they all are kind of contained. There's occasional times when characters will split off.
I was about to say, like, the sheriff and the friar are kind of like free floating characters through a lot of it.
Yeah, I was about to say, but even then you only usually have like 3 or 4 main speaking parts in a scene, like in a sequence, essentially. Which is kind of funny. Even like the castle raid, you have a little bit of Little John, and then Trigger and Nutsy and the sheriff and Robin Hood.
I love that sequence so much.
And that's like one of the best sequences.
Yeah. But dude, it's so great. I love it.
Yeah, do you have a question? Obviously we just kind of jumped right in, but
I do not have a question.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
I can kind of
That's
flow
good.
with this.
That's good.
What do you think? Because I think this is really fascinating. Because I think movies like this, especially one of the most interesting things about 70s movies for me in general is kind of how they reflect the culture of the time. Mainly because movie productions were so strapped down that they almost were forced to be such raw depictions of what, you know, the people were going through in the 70s. What do you think of like the themes of this movie as like a Robin Hood story set in a really, really rough economic time?
I think it's really, I don't know, I think it was like kind of brilliant, and maybe it wasn't like someone was like, everyone's going through financial hardship, we should make a Robin Hood movie. No, I think it feels...
Yeah, it wasn't like that. They had been working for like towards this production for forever. Since I think well before like Sword in the Stone. Yeah. They were trying to get this production made.
Yeah, because like Walt had the idea originally.
Yeah,
right?
it was Walt Disney's idea.
Yeah.
To at least adapt like a style story of this, not directly, let's do Robin Hood.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think, I don't know, it is really interesting, and it probably does help sell the authenticity of a lot of the like, I don't know, it's a very like impoverished movie. That's like the whole plot of the movie.
What I wanted to kind of touch on, and I didn't know your thoughts on this, but what I wanted to kind of touch on is how like kind of warm it feels because of its approach to poverty.
Yeah.
And like kind of what everybody is going through. And it doesn't shy away from like depicting it as suffering. They're all kind of suffering throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But it's got this really kind of warm and homey message about community and like working together and having fun throughout that.
Exactly. Yeah. It does, like, the characters don't have everything they need, but like the interesting thing is you never really see them like moping around, really. Like they're always happy to be around each other. At least
the only time they do is when they're literally all in jail.
Yeah, which is a really nice like way to do that story, and it helps drive home a lot of the like, again, like communal feeling of the movie, which really works.
It propels so many of the character beats, stuff like Friar Tuck getting really mad during the one scene. I think is such a really,
I love the church scene.
Yeah, like it's a really great scene.
Yeah,
like you really are into it after all of this. he takes from like the charity box, and Friar Tuck just loses it, and it's great, and you're like, yeah, get him, even though you know he's gonna get arrested for it.
Exactly. It's like we know he's not gonna obviously like beat up the sheriff, but like we're rooting for him.
Yeah, there's such a like they pull you into this sense of community, and kind of with that, like it's not a very like epic Robin Hood story.
The most epic thing is like the big castle burning thing at the end.
Like it's not one where it's like revolving around like a big heist.
No.
It doesn't have them all like do a full-scale rebellion. It's not a very
militarized Robin Hood movie.
Yeah, and most of the other Robin Hoods I've seen, now often I haven't seen any of like the old like Errol Flynn era Robin Hoods, which is what I need to do.
The modern ones are basically just war movies.
But I've seen a lot of modern ones. As far, I just lost the guy's name. That was loud.
Isn't Taron Egerton?
No, I'm saying as far, like the earliest Robin Hood outside of this that I watched. You didn't watch
you've seen the Kevin Costner one, right?
Kevin Costner one is, I think, the earliest one before that, and I think that was made in like the 90s.
Yeah.
But even by that one, which that one I still think is actually pretty decent overall. But even by that one, so much of it is specifically revolving around, like, again, almost military-esque. Like, the movie tension is we've got to build this band of people who can then do this and this and this, culminating in a big battle between, like, the monarchy and everything. That's not what this movie is doing, and I think that's really fascinating. It takes such a simpler approach to Robin Hood as a moral figure.
Yeah.
Even down to, like, the debate on, like, you know, like the classic, like, what are the morals of Robin Hood?
Right.
And in this one, they just are like, yeah, whatever. They don't even care.
Yeah.
Like, again, stealing from Breadsword, but they go right down to being like,
they literally, they open the movie.
They're like, are we the bad guys? Are we stealing? You know, we're stealing. And then Robin Hood's just like, stealing's a naughty word. And then they move on.
Right. No,
I really respect
very sincere,
it for that.
Yeah.
So much of it is avoiding so much of, like, the epicness that you could take for Robin Hood that would distract from the very little, like, down to earth feel of everything about this, the community sense.
Yeah, I really like how it doesn't feel like an inherent need to justify its, like, odd goings on, like Prince John, for example. Like, yeah, he said Hiss hypnotized the king and he went on a crusade.
Right, like, so much of the actual, like, plot of the movie literally happens off screen.
Yeah.
This is like a weird chapter in the middle of a much grander story.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so that is a good way to put it. Like, some major events happen, like the king leaves before the movie starts and comes back basically last second of the movie.
Yeah, he's in, like, one scene, which is, like, really fascinating, and it again gives you that sense of feeling like this is a much
it's like a slice of life movie.
Yeah, a
it's
much
so
grander
weird
story than what you're even taking part of, which is so brilliant for what they're doing. Like I said, I think the budget and the writing was just genius for what they were doing.
Yeah. And again, they make John such a, like, easy to hate guy, and the sheriff too. Like, they literally, the introduction for the sheriff is him stealing from, like, every single weak and marginalized person in Nottingham.
He steals from the cripple, the children, and the blind.
Yeah.
That's his opening, which is very funny. And, like, again, even the prince himself, and kind of playing into that, like, really realistic, in a sense, world that they build.
He's, like, unquestionably terrible.
He's unquestionably terrible, even by Hiss and the sheriff.
Exactly.
They don't like him either.
Yeah.
They just benefit from the system that he's doing. So, like, when they get all caught up in singing the phony King of England song,
his diss track,
it's so funny. And, like, when Hiss is excited that Robin Hood lived at the end.
Right.
And, like, there's so many tiny moments that make you really feel, like, fascinated by what the story is doing. And
I just love the world that the movie exists in.
And I think that's a pretty smart portrayal of, like, even like an evil monarchy per se. The fact that you have this totally incompetent ruler with people around him that don't really support him, yet the structure is so oppressive and tall standing just because.
Yeah, just because there's a figurehead and that's it.
And they have they have a small, like, a very, in the movie they have, like, a handful of people as their army.
Right.
But, like, it's so interesting to think about this kind of kingdom. I even think about, like, Maid Marian and the fact that she is kind of, like, theoretically, like, being kind of held in the castle. It's not explicitly said, but that's kind of what they imply.
Trapped. She's not trapped necessarily, but, like, she's not gonna leave.
But exactly, and, like, that plays into that same idea of, like, this big, tall, insurmountable thing that really isn't. That it just takes people coming together to beat, not even in violence, but just coming together.
Yeah, just like they're like, no, he's not going to rule the kingdom anymore. So they just steal all of his money and leave.
Yeah, he's not going to rule the kingdom. They just take the money and don't put up with it. And it ends up taking, like, a magical prince or King Richard came back ending to technically fix everything. But I think it's got such a strong statement and, like, feel for that whole, all it takes to stand up against this kind of goofy, sillily overpowered
just like
and
absurdly,
evil
absurdly evil monarch
is to just band together.
Yeah.
They can't throw you all in jail, kind of
They literally
thing.
throw everyone in jail. I think that's always like one of the funniest plot beats of this movie is that literally every single person in Nottingham gets thrown in jail.
Save for like the church mice, Robin Hood, and Little John.
What's funny is they have other mice in there, and they have like the little tiny ball and chain for the mice. I'm like, who's manufacturing these?
Other mice, Rebby, and supposedly evil mice that never appear.
I like that.
Yeah, I think per my question that I originally asked, that is like, you know, it's the core of the movie. It's the beating heart of the movie. Beyond the performances and animation, so much of what makes the story work is this kind of simple underdog story about just community and celebrating little victories and enjoying love.
I was about to say, really, in my mind, the like main thing the movie boils down to is love can overcome anything.
Yeah.
Even though like a lot of, you know, like even the main romance plot isn't that important, like it feels really important, you know?
Yeah, it's the spirit of it, not even just the plot. So much of the plot isn't what's important about this. Which again, like you said, it feels like very much a slice of life movie. You're coming into a slice of life of a Robin Hood story, of this world that's existed far before you and far after your visit.
Exactly.
Which is really cool feeling. It's very structured similarly to something like, honestly, the closest thing I can think of is like a Wes Anderson movie. Something like, even like Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah, Moonrise Kingdom is a good comparison. I was about to say Fantastic Mr. Fox.
No, Fantastic Mr. Fox isn't that good of a even something more like Isle of Dogs is structured similarly, but it doesn't really work as well.
Isle of Dogs has a really weird flow compared to this. It has a weird flow in general, but
yeah, Isle of Dogs is a whole can of worms. But again, that kind of structure that Wes Anderson often uses, I think, to one of the best examples is in Moonrise Kingdom in terms of like there isn't much of a plot of Moonrise
There's
Kingdom.
Like a thing that's gonna happen at the end, but like it's all kind of just leading to that. There's not much else happening.
And again, it kind of has a narrator to drive any of that story tension because there's not that much scene to scene story tension, and it kind of all happens in this. Here is this, and then this, and then this.
Yeah. Even Moonrise Kingdom is more driven than this thing is.
Yeah. Oh no, Moonrise Kingdom is much more driven, but I think it's very I think that's a decent comparison.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's structurally. I think Moonrise Kingdom is a little better for it being driven in the fact that it has a more satisfying conclusion overall.
And it has a much more imposing like threat, like a much more looming and immediate threat than this does. Because like really, John is only a threat in like the last 2 scenes of the movie or something.
Well, and beyond that, he's only like this, he's almost like a temporary threat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you don't know it when you first watch the movie, but on rewatches, which is all I've existed in, you know Richard is going to come back in the end. And then just, I mean, again, John isn't a real imposing character. He's
very weak. Yeah, he's very weak. He's not very smart, but like, I don't know. I mean, and we do get characters who say like Richard will return. Like they say that like over and over again. So it kind of makes sense that he would come back, but like also, we don't know for sure.
Time to get into the religious subtext of Robin Hood.
Funny. I had never thought of that before. That's
Neither
really
had I until just now, being like, Jesus will return, Richard will return to free us from our chains.
I was about to say, would that make Prince John the Antichrist? But no one believes in him. So
no, that would make Prince John just the world, you know, the society. Prince John is society.
Right. In reality, Robin Hood would be the Antichrist if we're going with that metaphor.
That doesn't make much sense.
I guess not. Yeah, no.
The metaphor's trailing off.
Okay.
Do you have a question, though?
Do I have a question? I should have thought of one by now.
I was about to say, because that kind of summed up what I was wanting to get into about the themes of the movie.
I don't know. I guess I'll ask, do you have a favorite like segment of the movie, since so much of it is like sectioned out? There's a lot of really fun ones.
Yeah, that's really difficult because there are so many like individual scenes and jokes and moments that I really love in this movie.
I always think back on the archery contest when I think about the movie, but like that's not like my favorite necessarily.
But that is definitely, I would say, a standout. I think that's actually where they have the most original animation in like any big sequences, and I think there's really great staging and like sense of space in that scene,
surprisingly.
Right, they're pulling like Scooby-Doo gags and like all sorts of stuff. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And again, you get to have a lot of fun with the vocal cast, as that's the sequence with arguably the most amount of voice actors in it.
Yeah, I was about to say, you get the crossover of
literally every character's there in the whole movie.
You get like Robin Hood, Little John, and Prince John and Hiss like all together,
and Marion and
Marion.
the chicken and almost all of the town folk, like literally, and the kids.
Dude,
it is
the turtle saying "Go Dad" waving his little flag is so funny to me. I love that.
That's arguably like the big scene of the movie, which is funny because it's not the climax, it's like a midpoint.
It's like almost this inconsequential scene where really the only big thing that happens is like they almost catch Robin and
Marion, and Marion escapes.
Marion and Robin, they they reunite basically.
I love the vocal. Just shout out to the vocal performance of the guy who plays Robin Hood in this when he's doing his stork voice.
That's so
he's
funny.
like, "Oh, kindly, your majesty."
I love that.
I'm gonna shoot her as good as Robin Hood. And he's got his little like pathetic stick bow,
right,
and his little arrows that are branches and practically falling apart.
I was about to say his little like branch arrows that he's like tied together with grass.
It's so good. It's so funny. And that's definitely a standout. I actually really love too, and I don't want to just pull out the big sequences, but I really do love the jailbreak sequence, because you get all of like, it is the only time that really Trigger and Nutsy are like big characters.
Yeah, they're not really in the rest of the movie.
They are so funny. So like you get again like the sheriff, Nutsy, Trigger, and Robin Hood playing off of each other is some of the funniest stuff in the movie, and I think it's perfectly paced out and has got some really fun like moments and beats, and
there's some of the funniest beats in the whole movie are in that one sequence.
Got the safety on old Betsy.
Exactly. But yeah, dude, I don't know. It's funny because the like whole prison break castle raid sequence used to be my least favorite part of the movie when I was a kid.
Same.
And it's just like so funny and like really well paced.
For some reason,
by my standard now.
For some reason, child me thought it dragged on a lot.
Yeah. It felt like an eternity.
Yeah, and it really does not feel like that now.
I don't know when I was on.
Maybe I'm just too busy laughing now to be like, this is taking too long.
I think I have a much bigger appreciation for like actual performance now than I did back then.
Yeah, and plus the comedy style that this movie is going. I'm surprised we loved this so much as kids, because this comedy style that it's going for is very like not like adult in a sense, but almost adult in a sense that it's like, again, it plays like theater comedy.
It plays like theater, which is so strange.
And very like old theater comedy, which is like cool. And I think it ages so well.
Yeah.
A lot more than a lot of the comedy in other Disney movies at the time. But quite frankly, this is the most comedic Disney movie I think that came out at all in this, like Disney-wise to this point, out of main releases. This is like the most straightforward comedy of any that came out to this point.
There's full on like visual gags like in every single scene. There's like written jokes in every single scene. There's funny dialogue and performances in every single scene.
Yeah, and
it's very explicitly a comedy,
which you can't say for a lot of the movies that came out around it, which is very funny because if you look at the other 70s Disney movies, I don't know what the other directors for Disney were on in the 70s, but those movies are all freaking dark. They're like the darkest movies in Disney canon. Came out in the 70s, and then there's Robin Hood that's all like oodalali,
right? The characters are just shouting oodalali. They're cracking jokes.
I was about to say the entire thing introduces the whole story as just kind of a carefree journey of comedy, you know,
Again,
Robin Hood and Little John.
having the menstrual rooster open up the movie is such a fun way to like open your movie, and he keeps popping up to like break the fourth wall occasionally.
Right. I love that he also gets locked up in the prison. That's really good.
Dude, I had honestly forgotten that he got locked up, and then like it starts out that sequence. He's like, "Yep, I'm in here too," and I'm like, "What?"
It's consistently funny and honestly surprising if you haven't seen it before. Like, I felt like I was being surprised by some of the jokes, even though I've heard them like 100 times at this point in my life.
It's such a joy to just exist in Robin Hood for 80 minutes.
Yeah, and that's the spirit of Robin Hood. Again, this movie, what it says is the spirit of Robin Hood is just enjoying each other. And while you can, standing up against injustice and enjoying each other.
Right. Man, what a beautiful movie.
It really is. I don't know. I like Robin Hood haters. What are you on? What are you talking about?
People who don't like
I don't want to
Disney's
shout
Robin
out
Hood.
names, but Adam,
I don't want to name names.
what are you doing? What were you thinking? What's going on?
Yeah, I guess if you just don't vibe with the way the movie plays out, because it's not a very like there's not a lot of variation on what the movie's doing. It's making the same sort of jokes, the same sort of dynamics. It's just playing them over and over again in different environments. Yeah. And if you're not into it, then I could see it being very boring.
Yeah, and like.
But I'm just so into it. I don't know.
Yeah, like the comedy is unconventional for the time. The structure is extremely unconventional at the time. It's like barely like a plot. And we said that as a big problem in Mario, but the comparison between how they use that in Mario versus this is like
the plot is like all Mario has going on.
Yeah. Whereas this is like it's not that concerned with the plot. No. Robin Hood as a character is not that concerned with the plot. He's like Phineas and Ferb.
He's literally just his like main goal is just helping people survive, basically.
No, but literally he's like Phineas and Ferb in the sense that the plot treats him as like this impossible force of good. Yeah. That where almost everything almost works out for him and he rarely has to actually worry about anything.
Exactly, yeah. He lives a very carefree life, which is very funny considering that he's like living through this horrific depression under a like miser of a monarch, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. And I think that's like I said, in the core of the movie, I think that's what really works. Also, I thought of a scene that I might mark as my favorite.
Ooh, okay.
Just overall, because I was thinking about it, and there's not a single moment I don't love about the initial little carriage robbery scene. I love that.
That scene is so funny.
It's so funny. The fortune tellers, dude, and the golden hubcaps.
Literally, like maybe the funniest shot in the whole movie is when Prince John looks into the crystal ball and says "oodalali" to his distorted reflection. It's like the funniest. It's the funniest thing ever to happen.
Everything in that is super funny. Even the stuff that doesn't make sense, like the fact that like they don't get somehow Little John just isn't seen doing any of this. He's clearly stealing the hubcaps. At one point, he walks and there are like 4 rhinos holding this chest. He walks underneath them. He's a bear. He's a big
giant bear.
He walks underneath it and like drills a hole in the bottom of the chest and starts taking the coins, and they just don't notice.
It's so funny.
And like that works, and it's really funny because then when they do notice, like I don't know, there's just so many jokes packed in to what I think is a perfect scene. I think it's some of the best Prince John and the whole
It really
movie.
is. He's really funny in that scene.
And yeah, it perfectly sets up a lot of the dynamics too, because if I'm not mistaken, it's the first Prince John and Hiss that we get.
Yeah, it is.
It's their kind of introduction, and really the introduction of the actual, like that's the start of the actual
I mean,
story.
yeah, I was about to say, like, the narrator opens, we get Robin Hood and Little John, they're
I was about to say,
running through the forest.
They sit in the tree, they have their, that's a naughty word,
exactly.
And then they immediately
They have their little monologue, and then they immediately start robbing the carriage, and you get introduced to literally like the 4 main players of the movie with Hiss, Little John, Prince John and Robin Hood.
Yeah.
And it sets all of their dynamics up so fast, and like it just sells me on them like instantly.
It's so funny. It's got great blocking, great
Yeah.
performances. Everything about it is so good. You get Hiss crossing his arms somehow. Like they got the snake crossing his arms.
Yeah.
That's such a funny thing.
There's literally Hiss is like one of the best animated characters I can think of, like in the Disney canon. Like he's so funny. Just literally anytime he's making even the slightest expression, I'm just like, yeah.
Which is funny too, because he's reusing so much animation from Ka,
yeah,
which was always one of my least favorite characters in Jungle Book.
Dude, Jungle Book.
Not a Jungle Book fan.
I like Jungle Book, but he is literally like the worst part of that movie.
Yeah, and I don't even like Jungle Book that much. I rewatched it recently and had so many it just did not work.
It's such a weird movie,
which is funny because like everything about this movie that does work does not work in Jungle Book in my opinion, and they're like, and it's such a more polished movie, which is funny. Like, dude, there's zero atmosphere tangible in Jungle Book.
Goodness. That maybe is like the driest movie ever made.
And there's like, not to go off too much on this rabbit hole, but there's like no soundscape of Jungle Book. Like literally
in the jungle.
There's almost no jungle noise. There's barely any score. Yeah. It is such a bleak soundscape movie, which cannot be said for Robin Hood.
Oh my goodness, dude! I love when they use the love theme in this movie. It's so pretty.
Dude, I love like the introduction of like Robin still being in love with Maid Marian.
That's such a funny scene.
He's humming the love theme before we've even heard it.
Yeah, before we've even heard the song. Yeah,
I love stuff like that.
It's so
which
great.
Leads me actually very well into the next question I wanted to ask, because I wanted to ask you what you think of it's not like the most important thing, but what do you think of Maid Marian and the romance subplot?
Romance subplot, I think it gives another fun dimension to Robin as a character, and I don't know, I think Marian makes a really fun a fun addition to the movie in my mind. She feels, again, like with all the rest of the characters, like a very distinct and well-rounded character, which is so strange because she doesn't have to be for the movie to function.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think honestly it makes me just more disappointed in like when watching that she's not in more, because I really love her as a character. I wish she was in more of the movie.
I was about to say, she has like such a fun spirit even in her introductory scene, and like even during the archery competition, like every single line out of her mouth, I'm like, yeah, it's 100% certified Maid Marian for real.
And I agree that like really that's the main thing that I wanted to touch on, is her like weird lack of inclusion, because I think that the romance subplot itself is a really, really strong thing to kind of give Robin Hood, because otherwise he wouldn't have that many like honestly humanizing moments. Like he wouldn't feel like a character without the love subplot. He would just be this force.
Like the really sweet moments with like the kids, or when he's helping during any of the scenes where he's with the sheriff, like you get like a very endearing look at him, like in how sweet he is.
Yeah, but he would feel like
he'd feel a little one-dimensional.
Without the romance subplot, he would feel just like Spider-Man, not Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You know, if that makes sense. Like he would be the kind of heroic figure that is just this heroic, awesome figure, and wouldn't feel like an actual person.
It's good to know that he cares about something other than like just kind of wandering around and stealing money and giving it to people.
So it's a very important dimension to him. But yeah, I just wanted to at least at some point bring up the fact that Marian is kind of underused.
Yeah, I think that's really the best diagnosis of her character, because like, I don't know, you could read it as being kind of like a regressive woman character, but like it doesn't really feel that way when I'm watching it. Like,
yeah, I mean,
she's underused, sure, but like
she's never presented as like a quote unquote weak character.
Exactly. Yeah, she always exercises any sort of agency that she has in every single scene she's in, which is cool, I think.
I don't know. I think she's a decent love interest, but I really do wish she had something more to do. I can't even picture how you would work that in this movie, because again, I wouldn't
it's want such a minimal movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't really want to add more to this movie, because like I think easily the more you added to this movie, the worse what we have would get. It would just like bring out all of the kind of problems that could easily be run into, but they don't, because it's so stripped back, because it's so short. They don't have time to run into so many of the problems they could have.
Right. No, they barely have time to like introduce Marianne.
Yeah. But man, that introduction is so great.
Right. I love the scene where they're playing what is it called? Badminton?
Badminton.
Badminton?
That's not badminton.
What is that?
I think, is it badminton?
I don't know.
A little game with
something British. The birdie.
Birdie and the little fake rackets. I think it's badminton. I think you were right.
I think I'm right. But like, yeah, it's such a sweet scene, and like so much of her characterization comes in from that point, and like I don't know, it just instantly wins me over. Like I'm like, yeah, she's in love with Robin Hood, and he's in love with her, and like they get their whole like sequence together out in the forest, and it's really beautiful, and I like it a lot.
Yeah. No, it always made me think, and like it reminds me of the fact that like I would want like a whole other movie, like I would want a sequel, quite frankly, to explore like what Robin Hood and Maid Marian got up to afterwards. Right? Like what else kind of roguish things would they get up to? Like I think that would be great.
Now that the king has an outlaw as an in-law.
As an outlaw.
Isn't that the final scene, the final line of the movie? I think so, That's so funny. I love that line so much.
Right, and the fact that it's the callback. That's good joke writing. Man.
An outlaw.
There's so much fun wordplay in this movie in general. So many alliterations and like just fun little things. I remember, again, so much of what I'm pulling from is from the Breadsword video. It's genuinely great. You should go watch it.
Yeah.
But he references the fact that during actually the big archery tournament scene, there's this random joke thrown in there just completely in French. Like, right. You would not, and not like common French. Like it is stuff you would have to speak French to understand.
I was about to say it went by me too fast. Like it was all words I knew, but I didn't put it together in real time, unfortunately.
So like, and that's kind of like the care that I feel was put into the actual joke writing of this, is that Prince John has, and it's probably like one of the most like quote unquote humanizing moments of Prince John.
Right.
He just rolls out this French saying. I think it's really interesting because again, Breadsword ties it back into this thing where like King Richard ruled over so much, and he was kind of an oppressive force to the area that he was living over. If we're talking the real life comparisons of this stuff,
the historical context,
but like Prince John wasn't, he was technically speaking a man of the people who knew the language that was spoken, and knew a lot of that. And I think it's just kind of like, it feels like a fun down to earth reference that kind of humanizes even this goofily silly bad character.
No, it caught me so off guard because I even forgot it. Like I always forget it's there, and then it happens, and I'm like, oh shoot, dude, what?
Like for a second you're like, oh man, this is like a guy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, the movie just feels like almost like improv, but it's obviously like too well structured scene to scene to be improv.
It feels like stage acting.
Yeah, it feels like
which
stage
is such
acting.
a crazy thing to like legitimately feels like stage acting, which is a crazy thing to pull from an animated movie.
It's crazy.
Like you could be like, oh, they're doing like stage performances, but like the dialogue, the way it delivers, the way they bounce off of each other feels like you do the dynamics you get when working on stage with each other.
It's just so good. It's just it's endlessly fun. I like you said, I would take a sequel like immediately where we get to see more of these characters just so like living.
Well, again, like the French line there gives you this deep sense that there is more to Prince John than you know. And there's more to Robin Hood than you know, and there's more to Little John than you know, and there's more to Friar Tuck than you know, and there's more under the surface. And I'm glad we didn't get into that more in this movie.
They give us just what we need and nothing else.
They give you just enough for, especially my imagination as a kid, to run wild with the movie and just fully feel immersed in this world that feels so much bigger and more special and warm despite all of the suffering going on.
Man, it's beautiful. I really will stand by that. It's like such a beautiful movie to experience, and it's so funny.
Yeah,
honestly, I don't get the hate for it.
Yeah, neither do I.
It's so strange.
Do you have anything else you want to add though?
Not really. Like we've covered pretty much like. Again, it's a very minimal movie, and like it has a few elements that it really just goes to town on, and those work really well in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the budget was well spent.
Yeah,
I think
dude.
The minimal work was great. I think the small team and great actors.
It gives it so much personality.
Led to it be feeling
it has like it has like its own voice.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy, and really I think it makes it one of in my opinion, the most notable Disney movies ever made.
Yeah.
Which may be a bold statement, but I've legitimately stood by that all my life. That's not even just for this podcast thing. I've always thought of Robin Hood as one of the standout movies
I've never
of Disney.
I had never really given it that much thought before, because like obviously there are so many other really popular, at least among people my age, Disney movies that came out around this one. I had never given it that much thought, but like revisiting it now that I'm an adult. I don't know why I stuttered there. Revisiting it like now that I'm an adult is, I don't know, it's given me a really like deep appreciation of what it's doing.
Yeah, like in terms of 2D animated movies that Disney has done, there are very few that I hold in as high regards as this. Like the ones that I think are better would be stuff like Lion King, which is like one of the greatest animated movies like, I've ever seen.
Yeah, that one is honestly just as fun as this.
And again, it even similarly ran under not the quite same situation. They had a big budget for Lion King, but it was the B team.
Yeah.
It was a much smaller team of animators and writers.
I can't believe the B team made a Lion King. That's so crazy.
I think the best movies that Disney can ever do are the ones when it's small, down-to-earth productions that are not that held over by the corporation.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I have like a top 100 like list on Letterboxd that updates pretty frequently, but like at the moment the two Disney movies that are in there are Robin Hood and Alice in Wonderland, maybe the two weirdest Disney movies they've ever made.
And Alice in Wonderland again is in a similar boat. That was a weird production.
It's so strange.
It had a much higher budget, obviously.
Yeah, you can tell.
I mean, they even had the budget to do like rotoscoping and stuff on the movie.
Yeah, I was about to say there was a bunch of rotoscope. There's like these crazy like full motion sequences where like the camera's moving around the whole time.
But even
like,
then, it was right in that weird period. I think it was just after Walt's death or just before. I think it was right in there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like mid 60s, I think, is
Alice so just Wonderland. Before Walt's death, I think. And it's in this really weird turning period of what Disney movies would become.
No, man, Alice in Wonderland, such a pretty movie. I love that movie so much. But yes, Robin Hood, very good in my book.
Again, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 5 out of 5, man. There's honestly very few things I would ever change about it, and I think it's so much fun, like even being what it is. Like I honestly can't think of a more fun way, for me anyway, like for my sensibilities, to adapt Robin Hood. Like it's just in my mind the definitive version of Robin Hood. But again, I don't have too much experience with the character, so take that how you will.
All right, do we want to get into the what we watched segment?
Sure.
So for those of you who are new to the podcast or have just never listened this far, the What We Watched segment is a fun little thing we do at the end where we talk about all of the movies we've seen since our last episode. We give brief thoughts, brief ratings, everything is brief, and we have fun with it.
Yeah.
I think we're
yeah.
I think we're going from the 12th because we did last episode was like a full-on what we watched episode because we were gone for so long.
If you like this segment, go give that a listen.
Yeah, but we're going from the 12th to present day.
Yeah, September 12th, 2023, baby.
Crazy. All right, and I think Robbie's starting us off with this.
I am starting us off.
A weird one to start us off.
Yeah, the day after we released our What We Watched episode, I watched a film called Rubber, from director Quentin Dupieux, I think is how you say his name. It's French. I should know how to pronounce it.
Dupieux.
I do think it is Dupieux or something like that because it has the UX.
Oh, yeah, EUX.
Yeah. But yeah, it's called Rubber. It was one of his first movies, I think like his third feature that he made. And it's very strange. It's about a group of people gathered in the desert who watch a tire commit like mass genocide using its I think they say telekinetic powers. Or psychokinetic, I think is the word they use.
What a film. What a picture.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's like this weird meta fest of almost schlock. It's such a weird movie. It's hard to describe it, really. But it feels very innovative. It feels a little overly long as well. Like they kind of get their point across because it's very much about like the relationship between filmmakers and the audiences of films, like very directly, very bluntly. I don't know. It plays kind of strange, but like they didn't need to be, a whole 82 minutes to get across what it needed to. I think it probably could have just been like half an hour and probably done the same thing pretty much just as well. But like for what it is, I enjoyed it. I think it's occasionally funny. I think I enjoy it more for like what it's trying to do than what it's actually doing moment to moment. So yeah. I don't know. It's cool. I like meta movies. I think they can be really fun. I know they annoy a lot of people. But I love Scream too, so like, what do you expect? But yeah, I gave Rubber a 3 out of 5. Strange time. I don't necessarily recommend it, but like, if it sounds interesting, like if a meta horror thing sounds interesting, then I guess check it out. I don't know.
Then on the 14th, I watched the 1988 classic Pumpkinhead. Very weird
Is
movie.
Is it a classic?
I don't know what qualifies as a classic these days. I know some people have seen Pumpkinhead.
Like, it's like a few people
Does that make it a classic? But yeah, I've been in kind of, if you listened to the last episode, kind of a horror movie kick to try and get an early jump on my spooky season watches because there's so much I want to try and get through. And, I wanted something casual, short, and fun, and I decided to go for Pumpkinhead because it sounded cool as heck.
Pumpkinhead, I'm still really stoked to see it. It's been on my watch list for as long as you have told me about it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's very classical, like, it's by the numbers horror movie kind of thing for this era.
Did it come out in the 80s?
Yeah, it came out in the 80s. Very by the numbers for kind of low budget horror monster movies, which I've seen more than I feel like I should have. Like, it's very similar in like vibe to that one Scarecrow one.
Night of the Scarecrow,
yeah,
I think
something
is what it's
like
called.
that. But it's just, it does this really weird narrative thing that I think in general kind of makes the movie a little bit more unpleasant than it should be. Because it's got some really enduring performances and fun effects. And Pumpkinhead himself is kind of like a really cool creature design.
Dude, I've seen some pictures from it. Yeah, it looks so cool.
He's really fun. But like the movie does this thing where they make you kind of root for everyone in this revenge monster movie, which makes it kind of miserable for everyone because nobody wins in the movie. Like literally, no matter
no
what
one
happens,
gets what they want.
Nobody gets what they want. Everyone suffers, and it's for essentially no reason, which is not a very pleasant movie. And it's like, it's a very goofy movie. Again, there's like a quote unquote old hag character, and her name is Haggis. And like, there's so many things like that make you sound like, that make this movie sound like it would be like a barrel of laughs. But at the end of the day, I just feel like was not having a good time while watching it for certain parts because it's so unpleasant.
You can make like a good like nihilistic kind of movie, but that doesn't sound like what Pumpkinhead is trying to do.
No, it's not. So I think it just kind of doesn't work on like that narrative level.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's really fun. I still enjoyed it. I still enjoy a lot of what it's doing.
Cool.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Very nice. Two 3 out of 5 movies from the all recently logged crew.
Then what did we watch together?
We sat down and we watched Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, this was a rewatch for me.
Maybe the most film bro movie that I had not seen.
Yeah, had to show him Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I'd seen like 1 or 2, two Quentin Tarantino movies.
Tarantino movies.
Before this, yes. And I'm like a diehard Once Upon a Time in Hollywood guy. Like, of course I am.
Right.
I just said I liked meta movies. But yeah,
I've seen 8 Quentin Tarantino movies. What am I doing with my life? You went on a big
binge, man.
I did. I went and watched like all of them I could find.
Yeah. But yeah, I watched Pulp Fiction for the very first time.
What can you say about Pulp Fiction?
I got some stuff I could say.
It's kind of a masterpiece.
Yeah,
it rocks.
It is a masterpiece.
It's so much fun. I love the performances in this movie so much.
Dude.
So many of the scenes are all-timers, clearly.
That's the thing. Like, almost every single scene, like with a few exceptions, is like the best scene of the movie.
Right. Anything at all with
sense.
Samuel L. Jackson or
Oh my
why did I
goodness,
just John
John
Travolta
Travolta.
or even Uma Thurman. They're all just like, or even dude, Harvey Keitel is really great in this.
Yeah.
Like literally everyone is just so good in this movie. Even dude, Tim Roth. I love Tim
Tim
Roth.
Roth is fun here, yeah.
Like everybody's just doing the most. Really, the only thing that I ever see people complain about, and it's funny because it's what you complained about too,
I only have really like one problem with Pulp Fiction.
is the Bruce Willis stuff.
Yeah. No, I was about to say it almost feels like the movie comes to a halt just for Bruce Willis's character's like weird misadventures. I don't know. It's very strange. Like I get why it's there. But like also it just again it feels like the movie's just hitting a pause right in the middle of
which
everything.
is weird because I like his character and I like a lot of
he's a really interesting character.
I like a lot of the individual plot points that happen under his character's umbrella. But like it does feel like the pacing just kind of dies with him for a little bit.
Yeah, like the scene of him going back to his apartment. That's like one of the best scenes in the movie. It's so cool. But like I don't know, yeah, that's like really my only criticism. I need to praise the lighting in the movie because it's like one of the most beautiful movies I've ever watched. Like everything is like drenched in this like golden glow. It just looks amazing. Like every single frame of the movie looks amazing.
Right.
And again, like Vincent Vega is like the greatest character in fiction.
Dude,
so
you can't call Vincent Vega the greatest character in fiction without mentioning Jules.
Dude, Jules' monologue in the diner at the end is like one of the best probably ever, and of course it is. Like everyone knows that.
Yeah, I was about to say like everyone talks about Samuel L. Jackson in this movie.
He's amazing.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Every scene. I think his character is really interesting too, his little arc that he has.
Right? He has such like an interesting arc over the course of the movie, and he's not in like all of the scenes.
Yeah, and they do such a good job tying in all the little vignettes of the story, and it's got a great soundtrack.
Awesome.
And
my goodness.
it's just
I mean, there's a reason it's
Pulp
like
Fiction.
There was a reason it's like hailed as like one of the best like zero to hero kind of screenplays ever.
Really the big thing like the last thing I'll leave it with is it's kind of a gross, scummy movie.
It is.
Things I don't like. The Tarantino-isms are going to be Tarantino-isms.
Honestly, the only thing holding Pulp Fiction back from being on my top 100 list that I mentioned earlier is how gross the movie feels a lot of the time. Yeah.
Why did Tarantino write himself into that role?
Can we good times.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino, what a guy. I gave Pulp Fiction a 5 out of 5 though.
I also gave it a 5 out of 5. I would gladly rewatch it. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Then on the 15th, we watched Saw.
We saw Saw.
We saw Saw for the very first time. We saw Saw. We watched it with my girlfriend. She came over.
Yeah.
And we watched the 4K uncut version.
Well, it's the director's... I forget exactly what they called it, but yeah, like it's the uncut.
Rebby, there's not like another unrated version though.
Oh yeah, unrated I think is. I don't remember.
No,
what
on the cover it says uncut, but there's not another like unrated. The unrated cut is the uncut cut.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. But yes, we watched the director's unrated cut thing in 4K.
In 4K, which was very, very cool. And
you can really see the grain.
had never seen Saw, and it's very fun. I don't have too much to say about the movie.
I feel like every James Wan movie that I've seen is either they fall into either this is boring and weird or this is really fun, and like I don't have any, like
this movie I would say runs right down the middle, leaning towards really fun.
Yeah, I felt that way about The Conjuring when I watched it. I was like, oh, that's fun, and then I like just didn't think about it. Is that one of
his movies?
Yeah.
I completely forgot that The Conjuring was his
movie. But yeah,
movie.
like I watched The Conjuring, I was like, oh, that was fun. And then I watched Saw, and I was like, oh, that was fun. Malignant is the one that stuck with me the most out of any of his works, which is very strange because like it's one of the weirder ones.
And that's really why.
Yeah, it has so much more personality. As strange as it is to say that, like Saw is obviously like a very auteur-driven movie.
Yeah.
from an up-and-coming filmmaker.
I think there's so much memorable about Saw. I really love the performances. I love so much of the puzzle solving and everything like that.
Right.
But quite frankly, I think one of my biggest problems with the movie, I honestly, I love almost everything about the movie but this, and this kind of brings down almost every other element around it. And I don't know how to like critically put it very well, but I don't think the mystery is very rewatchable. I think it's I finished that movie, and that was like one of the first things I thought. I was like, wow, this would not be as good on a rewatch. Like, that was my
I feel like it would just be kind of like you would enjoy it for like the fun performances.
You would enjoy it for like the other
flair,
elements of the movie, but not the mystery, which I think is kind of the core of this Saw movie anyway.
Again, the whole like premise of Saw is like waking up in like the trap room, and like that's the whole draw of the movie. You're like, oh, how did they get there? And like, again, that's a lot of the tension, especially in the first half of the movie.
Yeah, and I feel like granted, they do a really great job of not just relying on the trap room.
There's a lot of good dramatic tension outside
I think it's a really smartly written movie for this kind of movie. But like even then, like thinking back, I'm like, wow, I bet the scenes now in the room would be kind of boring because it's not really that like, ooh, trappy kind of trap. There are like a couple things.
They're chained to a pole.
Effectively, and are like, ooh, what if you killed each other?
Yeah.
Ooh. It's not like an elaborate.
It's not anything too.
It's not the
yeah.
expectations you get from like living in a world where Saw 10 is about to come out.
Well, all of the other traps, even in this Saw movie, are like more interesting and like immediately threatening.
Yeah, like literally all of it's so weird. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Literally every other trap they show in the movie is like really dangerous immediately.
This one's like, oh, they can electrocute you and there's like a guy.
Yeah, like dude, think of it, like the wire one, they're like you have like an hour to get out.
Well, whereas, even like the bear trap on the like bolted to the skull or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I think in general all of them are like time like related. In this one technically
they have to get it done by 6 o'clock.
There's no thing technically threatening them but each other in that time. Which is weird and makes for a really weird kind of narrative story that I don't think will be the most interesting to come back to, but it's still really fun.
It's fun enough even just for Carrie Ewell's performance.
Yeah, Carrie Ewell's is so great.
He carries so much of my enjoyment.
Is so goofy in this. Even Danny Glover is just doing like a really fun goofy thing in
Danny Glover, I don't know what he's up to in this movie. He's making like he's doing the silliest things in this movie.
So I think its funness carries it pretty far.
Yeah.
And I think again for this style movie, which I've seen several riffing off of like this kind of thing that Saw practically invented for the horror genre. I think this is pretty smartly done for it. I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I was about to say at the end of the day, which is again kind of like funny to think about, Saw is just like a pretty solid thriller. Like that's really what it is, and it works pretty well. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think it's pretty fun. I was gonna give it a 3, but I was like, no, James Wan is really doing something that's like worthy of praise here.
No, I genuinely think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool movie, I say.
Indeed. Then what did we watch, Trevi?
Then we sat down on the 16th and we watched a little movie called The Shining. You ever heard of it?
Nope, I've never heard of The Shining.
Another like big film bro blind spot crossed off.
Yeah, again, something that I had seen that Robbie had not, that I was like, oh, you gotta watch The Shining.
And I mean, like, Stanley Kubrick is like one of my favorite directors probably ever, and I hadn't seen his movie about hotels, which is one of my favorite things ever, and it's also a horror movie, which rocks.
Yeah, I'm not even like the biggest Kubrick fan, but like this is genuinely probably one of the best movies I've ever seen.
I feel like you can't watch The Shining and like just completely ignore how firm of a grasp Kubrick had on like everything movies. Like he just knows what to do with the format of movies.
It is this towering achievement of cinema, quite frankly, and has been regarded as such. And I think it's completely deserved. I think the performances are outstanding on everybody's account.
Oh my goodness, dude. This is like such a killer ensemble. Like I don't understand how you get like a group of actors to do this well unless you're just a really good director.
Like you said, Shelley Duvall is like instantly really, really like she's got some amazing physical acting in this.
Dude, she's almost arguably, in my mind, better than Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I was about to say, and obviously Jack Nicholson is giving the performance of his career, literally.
Yeah, no, this is easily the best thing I've seen him in. Like, he's just 100% committed to doing, like, everything the scenes
I love how much he does. I
him.
love how much he does with his tongue in this movie. More, I've seen him in a lot of
tongue
movies.
acting in this.
Yeah, unless he's got his tongue on full force in this, which is amazing.
It's so great. Oh my goodness,
and
dude.
and at the end of the day, especially on a rewatch, it was just even more engrossing and honestly like terrifying. It's such
it's like
a
scary.
subtly scary and terrifying movie.
Yeah.
I think its ending worked a lot better for me on a rewatch because
It feels kind of sudden.
The first time around, I thought I was kind of like, oh, that was kind of sudden. I wasn't a huge fan of how it ended for Jack, like in terms of how it just kind of trails off.
Yeah.
But this time around, I think that worked a lot better, and I was just really digging what the movie was laying down.
Yeah, I was a little worried, honestly, because like so much of this movie, because of how big it is, like basically all of the major beats of the movie are just like cemented into the cultural zeitgeist. I basically knew what was going to happen in the movie before it happened. But like just literally every single scene is just like jaw-droppingly amazing. Like the grip this movie has on me, like while I'm watching it, is unprecedented, I think.
Funny, it makes me think of that clip that was trending on Twitter for a bit where the person was like, and I'm sure, I don't know if some of you saw it, it was the funniest thing in terms of how awful it was. Everyone was so mad at it. Mm-hmm. It's like this guy, he's like, The Shining is arguably a masterpiece, but this scene has always bothered me. Shelley Duvall walks up into this hallway, and then after like 30 minutes of mind-bending hallucinations, we don't see her press the button of the elevator. So we don't know if she's actually in the room and this is happening, or if it's just a vision.
Oh my
goodness.
I think
this is something that Ready Player One got right, and would be a lot better if we edited in a CG Shelley Duvall getting hit by the flood of blood.
Oh no.
He said that.
No.
Everyone's been making fun of that all day on Twitter. But
it's crazy, man.
Media literacy is broken. We're doomed as a species.
Another thing to shout out. Where are they? For heaven's sakes. Wendy Carlos's score for this movie is like this movie is like a musical almost, if that makes any sense at all.
The score operates on a level that directly communicates with the characters.
Exactly, yeah. It's so strange because like you'll get like these weird melodies that play exactly like what is happening on screen, and it works. I don't understand how they made it work so well.
Yeah, like literally the score is a character in the dialogue.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like it's I genuinely don't understand how like a group of humans made The Shining. Like it's just again like a towering masterwork of just editing and rhythm and like atmosphere and lighting and
it's a
set design. Oh my goodness, the set design.
As much as Pulp Fiction is a masterpiece, this is like a masterpiece.
This is like capital M masterpiece.
Yeah, you know, like this is a towering thing of cinema that has never been touched since it came out.
In my mind, the scariest horror movie I've watched, easily the best horror movie I've ever watched. My favorite Stanley Kubrick movie.
Anyway, we've been going on about this very long.
It immediately entered my top 100 films of all time.
5 out of 5, easy
5 out of
peasy.
5, yeah. It's amazing.
Then on the 16th, I think would be, on the 16th, I watched Ponyo.
Nice palate cleanser after The Shining.
Same day, Shining. I went to a party. It was like, I think we turned this on at like 10.
Yeah.
And like it was super late. A bunch of us were piled into a home theater, and we were cracking jokes, having fun. It was my first time watching all the way through a Ghibli dub.
Yeah. Oddly enough, with how many Ghibli movies we've watched, we haven't watched a dub yet, or at least I haven't.
And, you know, as much as I'm always anti-dub, it really is kind of impressive how good the Ghibli dubs are. Mm-hmm. They put the work in for it.
Disney literally just like poured a bunch of money on releasing these in the US.
Yeah, literally all you need to do is put the work into your dubs and they're good, because this was practically seamless as Ponyo in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's just I think this time around I actually upped my rating by a half star, but I think that's mainly just because I was watching it with a bunch of friends and we were all tired and cracking jokes.
Ponyo's a really beautiful movie. I always forget just how beautiful it is.
It's a gorgeous film. It's paced so well. There's so many fun moments and set pieces. We were all joking about, like, we could not stop laughing at how recklessly the mom drives in the movie.
Oh my goodness, dude!
How much she should just be dead.
It's crazy.
And it was genuinely a great night. So yeah, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Very
great
cool.
movie.
After we watched The Shining, I sat down and watched Godzilla Raids Again, which is the sequel to the original 50s Godzilla movie. And it's about Godzilla, and he's raiding again. I don't know. I feel like anyone familiar enough with the Godzilla canon knows what to expect from this movie. And it's fine. I think it's a perfectly fine movie. It has some fun Godzilla action. Like, that's easily the best part of the movie, is like all the kaiju stuff. They're like ripping stuff up. He's got his fire breath. He's blowing around. He's doing his thing. And then the human stuff is sweet, and it doesn't really move much beyond that. And that's like a majority of the movie. I don't know. The stakes are really weird. The actual plot is kind of weird. And the Top Gun Maverick finale is copied and pasted in this movie, which is really funny.
Tom Cruise is a hack.
Exactly. Tom Cruise stole the finale of Godzilla Raids Again, and I will never forgive him for it. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Then on the 17th, I sat down and finally got to a movie that had kind of fascinated me in theory for a long time.
I was very interested to see it.
I was really excited about this for a long time, but I watched Society, 1989. You may know about it. You may be a part of
Guys ever heard of Society?
You know, we live in a society. They say society so much in this movie.
That's so good.
But it's a horror comedy question mark in the 80s. Kind of a cult classic, known for its really, really crazy practical effects. But I was super impressed. It's so much fun. I think it's paced really well. I think it pulled off me liking a gaslighting plot, which is very rare.
That's crazy.
The main character is just such a lovable doof that when everybody's like, "No, you're making that up," and it's so obvious that he's not, that you can you kind of just have to enjoy what it's doing.
Micah, the first genre listed on Letterboxd is comedy.
Yeah, I was about to say it really is a comedy, but I think its horror is really effective. I think that I don't know, I would almost list horror before it, even though it's equally as much of a comedy.
Yeah, you mentioned how scary it was, which is kind of funny to me, because it seems like it would be a very easy movie to just be kind of a goofy prosthetic fest kind of thing.
It's so goofy and is so much fun, and it's very 80s camp throughout a lot of it. But that blends so well with its themes into one of the most viscerally gory endings of any movie I've ever seen.
I can't wait to see it, dude. It looks crazy.
They go way crazier than I thought they would with the ending. And it's just fun. It's goofy. It's funny. I thought it was scary. Maybe I'm crazy for that.
Ooh, it's so scary.
Ooh, scary.
That's what he said.
Yeah, literally. But I don't know. I really, really loved the movie. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Very
cool. One of my favorite horror movies and comedies I've seen.
I did not expect you to like Society. I haven't seen it, but just the vibe I get from it, I would not. I did
not expect for me to love it this much. I mean, that's way above average. The only other person I follow who had seen it gave it a 2.5. I was not, but I enjoyed it through and through.
It looks awesome. Executed correctly, it looks like it would be really fun.
I loved the performances. I thought it was genuinely funny and goofy and scary, which I think is very difficult to pull off for a horror comedy.
Absolutely.
And again, the effects are incredible. You can't go
I was
home
about
on
to
that
say
enough.
I would watch it for the prosthetic and practical effects alone.
There's a couple things, if you really pay attention, the budget will show in a lot of the prosthetic work, specifically the ones where it's specific people's faces, like things on people's faces you can see, but it's so impressive, and it works so seamlessly for this absolutely I mean, everyone just talks about the ending, but the last 10 minutes of this movie are some of the wildest 10 minutes I've ever seen in a movie.
That's good, I say.
So yeah, Society. Crazy.
Society. Micah says society.
Society. Then on the 17th, we watched Robin Hood.
Watched Robin Hood, and it was so good.
And that was what we watched.
That's what we watched.
Go check out some cool movies.
Yeah.
Go watch Ponyo.
Watch Ponyo. What a sweet film.
What a sweet film. That's like the only
much more pleasant
film. Robin Hood and Ponyo. Those are your, if you want a sweet film, those are your missions.
If you are up for some disturbing-ish content, watch The Shining.
Yeah.
And maybe Pulp Fiction.
Maybe. I would be more, it's funny, I'd be way more inclined to suggest The Shining to someone than Pulp Fiction.
Right.
And yeah, I wouldn't really, it depends what you want to go for society.
Yeah. But go watch a good movie.
Go watch
Robin Hood.
Yeah, literally. That's the
easy.
moral. That's the
recommendation.
takeaway. That's the takeaway of this episode. It should be anyway. Go watch Robin Hood, and
we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week.